goodness, you guys are champs.
Yeah,
Uh-oh, it's being recorded now.
I'm gonna stream this on.
I have to watch my words now. No profanity.
That's okay. I'm so used to profanity. I love it.
Well, it's certainly a great way to vent emotions without having to do anything that you might regret.
Okay. What's going on Facebook?
Nelson Delgado, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
On this evening.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Nelson. We really appreciate your time, and regardless of technical difficulty, I'd like to welcome you and everyone who logged in, and and it's going to be a great interview and info session on your expertise, but also how you can help a lot of these individuals that are going through some tough time during this unprecedented time. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit more about who you are and how you got started.
All right, so give me a second here. I'm just going to end the call that we had earlier.
Cool.
All right. Don't know why that is still on. There we go. Okay, so
and we are live on Facebook, just to let you know.
yes. Let's see here. I'm just going to mute my my computer as well. There we go. Okay, so my name is Nelson Delgado. I'm a 42-year-old Gemini, and I essentially went through, I was a very artistic but a very empathic child when I was young. Very paternal instincts. Grew up with a mother who was a child care provider. Sometimes she had a dozen kids in her apartment. So I learned very early on how to care for others. And growing up, I was able to channel my creativity in a productive and expressive way through painting and all that other stuff. And I graduated with honors from college in graphic design, corporate and advertising, thinking that that was what was going to be my thing, because I was constantly in a state of inspiration. And when it came down to creating really engaging content, advertising campaigns with heartfelt messages that would really pull at the heartstrings, I had this unique ability to draw people in. But what I didn't know was where I was going to be led eventually. So I did about 10 to 15 years of consultation in multimedia, I guess you could say sales of hardware and software and many other things. But after a while, it just sort of got really very monotonous. And got to the point where my soul was like, okay, that's enough doing that stuff. And if you don't start to change and shift towards a different direction, I'm going to shut you down. And that's my take on depression, on how I experienced it. So I went through almost a year's worth of depression, and I was very ineffective as a father and as a husband to my children and to my wife. And then I literally set out in prayer, rescue me from this. I'll do whatever it takes. I can't do this anymore. I want to know why I'm in this state, that I have no energy when I come home from my children. I just have enough to get through my day at work and then come home and I'm done. And so I got hit with a vision, and I didn't know what that meant. So I had to investigate with an obsessive level of being to find out what that was about. And I learned from various masters through their books and their presentations and some of their courses. And I then took what's called an enlightenment intensive, which again, I think I might have a book on that. It's a really profound means of doing what's called dyad work and engaging with complete strangers for about 2 to 3 days, maybe even a week, and just excavating and excavating and excavating to a point where I finally unmasked who I was, and I was able to release what would probably call a shadow part of me, and that in a way where it had its control through guilt and shame and other various triggers. And then I realized who I was. And then I would come home to my wife, and she asked, "So how did it go?" And I go, "Well, I feel like a woman trapped in a man's body." And because I was really connected to that divine feminine component, that and the spirituality that I've been kind of pushing away for so long, because I thought spirituality meant religion, and that's not necessarily the case. So I invested in in learning many different philosophies, and got to a point where I felt, this is wonderful. I have all these different perspectives, but like, we need to put this into a practical sense. And so I realized that so many people are essentially just sort of trapped in a construct that they in part also helped create, but was also influenced by external forces. And by doing this excavation work, they would realize, wow, like all these things I was told to believe, all these things I learned, all this learned behavior, all these experiences, all the trauma, all of that has essentially created like a thick skin or a barrier that prevents me from being who I really am in the world. And I felt that was a powerful process that everyone should take part in if they decided to. And so I discovered emotion code, and after practicing Reiki, and because Reiki was very supportive healing art, and I thought that that was fantastic. But I knew that there was something else. Like, I had a pulling toward the deeper essences of the problem, and found that a lot of emotional baggage was like literally stuck inside various parts of the body.
Right.
And through a means of using kinesiology to help isolate just what kind of trauma energy was there, we could then ask the subconscious to release it. And then lo and behold, the person would have reduced pain, reduced anxiety, reduced anger triggers, more control of their emotional states. And they didn't realize that not only did it affect them, it affected some of their family when it came to some ancestral stuff too. And that the family dynamics started to shift. So I'm very inspired by what has transpired over the years. And I look for people, and sometimes I look for people, even if they don't have very much money, I'll make just come see me. Just come see me. I just want to help you, get back some of your power. And I want you to discover that you don't have to remain in that state as longer than you should, or longer than you perceive you should, or that you expect to be. So that's where I'm at right now.
And Nelson, can I just ask you, what was the vision that you had at that time?
It can be very personal. I usually tend to resist from divulging that, but essentially it was, it wasn't a verbal message per se. It was a presence. It was like a being of divinity staring right into my eyes and saying, "Do you know who you are? I have so much reverence for you, Nelson. You have no idea how much love I have for you." And the feeling was almost as if you were in the womb of a divine mother. And this being was just looking into my eyes saying, "Don't you know who you are? Don't you know who you are? If you don't know who you are, I think maybe it's time to figure it out." But it wasn't a verbal vocal thing. It was more of just a feeling saying, discover your power. So discover your gift, discover your purpose. And and that's really what drove me in that direction.
Wow.
Okay.
So tell us.
Sorry for interrupting. Go ahead, John.
So, Nelson, tell us a little bit more about how did the emotion code came to be, like some of the history and the practice and the course and the program. Tell us a little bit more about the history of it.
So Dr. Brad Nelson is the founder, and he was a holistic practitioner and chiropractor in the United States, I think in Utah. And he did a lot of work on people, and eventually got to a point where he thought that from his training, his work would have sufficed for what he deemed was necessary to get people back to their normal capability, or at least the capability for the age that they were at. And it got to a point where he encountered some patients where it was persistent, that whatever they did, the energy that was within that part of the body would not allow the person to continue for a certain period of time. It eventually would misalign the body in some way that would cause a person to be incapable of functioning normally. So he got to a point where he said, well, what is wrong with you? And he figured, well, you know, I have some practice in kinesiology. Let's find out what's going on. So he would test out, is this something to do with an injury? No. Is this something to do with something mental? No. It's something to do with emotional. And it struck a chord. Yes. And the body gave it a strong response. And so he realized, okay, it's an emotion. All right. So is this, are you angry? No. And it eventually got to a point where it was shock. And he had shock stored in a certain part of the vertebrae. And once they had released the shock, and he had to go through a lengthy process of trying to find out what's it going to take to release this. And he found out that the body's meridian system is a channel for instruction as well, not just for a channel of energy flow. So if we were to use the meridian system and then ask the body or ask the subconscious mind repeatedly over and over and over again, and then test to see if that was on the way out through the body's strength and weakness response, then you could find that trauma energy, request its release, and then lo and behold, he corrected him again. And then 2 weeks later, he checked in and said, how you doing? Doing great. No need to come back. 2 weeks more later, again, same thing. No need to come back. So he figured, there was some emotional baggage that was actually affecting the physiology. And then after a while, he did some work with other patients regarding emotional release and found that there was a consistent theme going on. And then he heard what would be considered a whisper from outside saying, you need to catalog your work. And so he began to catalog his work and realized he was onto something. Lo and behold, he started releasing more and more stuff. And not only did he work on humans, he also worked on animals and found out he was able to release blockages that affected animals and horses especially. He knows a lot of ranchers, and he became sort of like the animal whisperer and releasing trauma from the horses. So after that, he began cataloging his work to a point where he goes, well, you know, he just kept on incorporating the emotional component to a point where he was like, I can't deny this anymore. I really need to make a book from my experiences. And after a while, he did that. And then he said, okay, maybe there's more than just emotions here. Maybe we can clear out more stuff. And then he found, oh, there's post-traumatic suggestions. There's sabotaging energy. There's cording that we sometimes place and anchors that we were created that slow us down from impeding in our process. So there's all these energetic imbalances that he was able to isolate. And so he then created the body code. So for the emotion code right now, where the emphasis is 60 different emotions and releasing all of those. And you'll probably notice a little list there. You'll see that there's ancestral, in case you believe in reincarnation, past life, before you were born, and prenatal, and sometimes you can have a combination of more than one emotion, sort of like a ball of like a hybrid source of energies, whether it could be anger and overjoy. So you could have both of those, where you could see that you're constantly engaged in really, questionable physical activities, such as jumping off an airplane, or doing some extreme stunts, and you like yeah, and getting really, really angry, like getting that anger out, and yet championing. So you can actually have hybrid energies mixed, and sometimes the extremes are too much for your system to hold on to. They need to be released, otherwise they start to affect the tissue in your body after a little bit of time.
I see. You kind of
So
just
do emotions always show up in your body in the physical? So is that what you work on with the emotional code, or do you also work on someone who has depression, anxiety, things like that?
Well, anxiety is an emotion. Now, emotions, the emotional field, when you look at the subtle body in charts, you'll find that the emotional layer is actually below the mental, and which is quite interesting because a lot of mental illness can sometimes come from trauma and is often rooted in trauma. So when it comes down to the emotional, if the emotional body is really littered with a whole bunch of stuff, and we live in a predominantly mental focused, logic oriented society, what we're doing is we're essentially blocking, not honoring, and suppressing and ignoring the emotional intelligence that's trying to filter through. So as we hold on to it, just like in water with tests with Dr. Emoto, and you know, putting bad vibes onto water and seeing and freezing it and seeing the disorienting patterns, and then you see gratitude, love, joy, and you see all these harmonious patterns, balance, beautiful patterns. And then you do this to rice, and you do this to all these things. Even plants, you vibe out negative energy to a plant, it starts going droopy. You feed it gratitude, love, and appreciation, it starts to feel like it's fortified and flourishing and has full vitality because it's been given all this stuff. So I really firmly believe that all matter has some sort of memory at an energetic level. And when we store emotional energy that generally isn't innately, intrinsically part of our immortal being naturally, we tend to gravitate toward love, compassion, service, and growth and development. But when we have anger, unnecessary levels of anger, unnecessary levels of fear, unnecessary levels of sadness, those extreme levels oftentimes pose a blockage or an interference that allows for the cells to do their job in that environment properly. So, and it's a very long-winded explanation, but it's as scientific as I can make it and as practical as I can make it.
Very interesting. So
Thank you for that.
question that I have is, since discovering the emotion code, and how has this changed your life and your perspective with others, and also as a practitioner, the ones that you've seen who, you know, you've taken, you know, as your patient, as your clients, what's the feedback?
The feedback, I would say, is probably in the 80 to 90 percentile, extremely positive. And the reason why is because the way I approach emotion code is not quite like the book. The book usually states that you may only need 3 meridian or 5 meridian passes to release a current life trauma, maybe 10, maybe to 13 meridian passes to release an ancestral trauma. I really ask I guess you could say, the almighty intelligence of the soul, whether it be through remote work or whether it be through in-person work. I always ask, what's it going to take to release this in its entirety? So when I do that, I actually have a higher percentile of success rate with the patient, because it's all about what they need to fulfill the outcome that they want. So I do whatever is necessary. So if it takes 150 passes to release 77 generations of hatred, so be it. That's what we're going to do. I don't take my job lightly, because I know that I'm not a person that wants to do something according to a guideline and realize we didn't do enough after the fact.
Right.
I'd rather do it right the first time. So when I approach emotion code, I always ask what is in the highest good of the individual to release at that time of their life. If the individual wants an emphasis placed on anxiety release, depression release, then so be it. We do it. Sometimes there can be some slight adverse effects early on during processing, where they might feel a little discombobulated, a little out of sorts. So I do give them the choice. Do you want to release everything that's related to your current condition that needs to go now? Or do you want to just release what's in your highest good at this point in your life? And then I leave the responsibility of that decision to them. Because in the end, it's their life, it's their body, and they know what they want. So I do what's best for them, first and foremost, in what they want. I always put the client first. But at the same time, as much as I love to help people release trapped emotions, I am really, really passionate about educating them on the intelligence of the emotions, because the emotions are a form of intelligence. They have a message to bring. They're there to guide you. They come out from as a sort of like in a mystical language from the soul, in my opinion, to express, let's say, anger. Someone has infringed upon you some sort of attack, whether it be subtle, moderate, or heavy. And it's your job to now use anger to establish a boundary, bring back integrity, dignity, respect. That's healthy anger, right? We're supposed to honor that. But when we take anger to defensiveness, stubbornness, resentment, bitterness, hatred, and then rage, then we're gone too far. And if we don't manage a means to process it, what ends up happening is our field weakens as a result of those emotions not being expressed properly. So it's really important to understand the importance that emotions play in our life, not just our thought forms. Because the emotions are, I think of it like a wave coming at you. You're not going to stop the wave. You can try to deflect it, but you have to, if you can deflect it, wonderful. You can, that helps, so that the wave doesn't overtake you. But it's important to acknowledge what the wave is, and then notice, okay, how can I respond to the wave? So that maybe either I have to dive right into it, or do I have to try and jump over it, and then realize why that wave came up. Because when we take these waves that come up from within us and then we just express or react unconsciously, the end result is there can be more damage done because of the emotion. We didn't, and when we hold on to that energy, what ends up happening is that it's like having an unwanted guest remaining in your home for far too long. You got used to them being there, but they weren't there to remain there the whole time. You need to thank them for their presence and what they bring, and then guide them out the door.
Thank you, Nelson. Can you walk us through what a session is like?
Okay. Well, essentially what I do is I first find out how many imbalances or how many emotions need to be released. I don't really want to sort of just play a part in like assessing which one of you needs to release what, because then it gets a really interesting and slightly awkward. But what I tend to do is I will, if the person's not responding, their body's not responding, I'll find out if there's any imbalances that are not responding to the test, which is usually I'll say, oh, is your name John Tan? And then I'll have you stand up, and if your body leans to forward in the direction of moving forward, that means it's congruent. Yes, your name is John Tan. You could say my name's Mickey Mouse, and then it'll go backward and pull you backwards. So the field will treat you like a pendulum. Mm-hmm. So you can respond in that way. The other is, there are other tests where you can do your own hand tests. So you can take, let's say there's the ring and ring test, where if you say my name's Nelson and I pull, there's going to be resistance for my fingers to not break. When I say my name is Mickey Mouse, my muscles ease, and there's no more energy to make sure that the current that's going to my fingertips stays strong. It's now been weakened. There's other tests too, where the body can respond. One of my favorites for people, because you can do this discreetly, even to test whether or not you should grab that bag of potato chips or go for a different food instead, is to do a tongue test. And tongue test is to say, let's say my name is John Tan, for example, and move your tongue as quickly as possible from left to right, and see if there's good current running to your tongue to move it really quickly. Then say my name is Mickey Mouse, and then you'll notice that the tongue, after about a couple seconds, will no longer have that current, and it will start to stutter and not move as quick. So the body can take back energy and give energy towards something that is congruent. That being said, when we start looking at these emotions, we start going at it, so you got here, we start going at a column A or column B, then we can go down to, so if it's in column B, then we go find out what row is it in. Is it going to be in row odd numbered or even numbered? And then we get to the point where we can isolate the exact emotion that we need to release. And I sometimes ask, is there more than one of this that needs to be emphasized? And then we find out, okay, so is it more than one of fear? Or is it more than one of dread? Is it more than one of panic? And then, so there's more than one. Okay, wonderful. So can we release more than one? And I'll test. More than two, and I'll test. And I'll keep on testing until I get to a point where the field responds with a no. And whether it's me doing it or whether it's them doing it, if they can't get up because for whatever reason it's uncomfortable to keep swinging forward and backward, fields communicate. You have vibes coming out of each individual, which means there is etheric communication happening between one person and the other. So that information can be sent probably even before the session starts, so that the person starts communicating, this is what she needs and how high is good. And then let's say, well, okay, then we'll go through each one. We'll find out how many it takes to release each one. And then they might feel really light after that, but then afterwards, there might be some ups and downs happening with the processing, because the field is actually purging bit by bit, and it's reshuffling. So as it's reshuffling, the person's going to feel not quite at home for the first few days. They're going to feel like there's a lot of things going on, and they don't know how to what kind of sense to make of it, because again, we're trying to work things logically. So after the first 3 or 4 days, if there's been a lot released, and a lot would be like 8 to 12 emotions would be quite a bit for one day. And then once that's done, we give it about a week to 2 weeks for the field to jettison and then reharmonize. Once that's done, then the person will feel more relaxed, lighter, not as prone to previous patterns. What I mean by that is that we may release emotions, but there's still going to be thought forms that were reinforced by the emotions. So we can't just release the emotions and they're cured. It's we release the emotions and then we tackle the thought programs that they're conditioned to believe that were reinforced by those underparts, those emotions. So when we start realizing, well, what phrases are we working with here? That's when we get into the body code. We start going into the post-hypnotic suggestions, broadcast messages, and there's a whole bunch of other things we can get into. But right now is emotion code day, so we'll try and keep it simple.
I like the
How do you sorry, John. So how do you release the emotion? Is it just by doing the test and then saying, okay, this many emotions? Like, if you could describe a bit more,
Sure.
what
Sure.
the process is like.
So let's say, for example, the person needs 7 meridian passes with heartfelt intention to release panic from age 9 due to a domestic dispute with their mother and father. Okay. So we go ahead and we go, okay, so we need 7. So I ask that person, speak from your heart. You can repeat what I say. And we go, I release the panic from age 8. I release the panic from age 8. I release the panic. And we keep on saying this and saying this. And sometimes eventually the person might actually feel like something coming up, like a little bit of like a burp, right? Because sometimes even there's a physical response to the release. But what ends up happening is that then once that's done, I tell them to take a nice deep breath in, maybe once or twice, and then we test. Is it on the way out? Because it can't be released in a snap. It takes time to jettison. So is it on the way out in its entirety? And if it if the body confirms yes, we're golden. We can move on to the next one.
I see.
Okay.
So I like the tongue part, because my tongue right now is craving for Doritos. Just to let you know, that's a formal release. But question for you is, so with a session, does it take about an hour or longer, or
It all depends on whether the person needs to spend time on that specific memory. It may be unpleasant, but it's probably important, because in any healing process, and I think shamans attest to this, you have the process of isolating what you need to release first. Then you need to request its release, right? But then you need to understand what that memory brought in terms of wisdom. Because you could release stuff and not learn a damn thing and keep bringing the same situations back into your life and not learning anything. So you need to identify, what did you learn? What can you not tolerate? What needs to be corrected? What behavior needs to be adjusted? What do you have to go and move towards? And then you start then you can start making a plan of action about how you want to proceed moving forward. And then you physically get engaged with your life. You actually physically move forward. You get out, you go for a walk. Because as you physically get engaged, the body's torus field starts to flow, just like the magnetic field of planet Earth, spinning, but still has this toroidal effect. So as we're doing this, as you're grounding as well, touching feet to ground and expelling, moving your field, what you're doing is you're actually encouraging the process of releasing the energy from your field outward. So that's the 4-step process. Now, if there is a transgression against you and someone caused you harm, whether it be intentionally or unintentionally, and they need to apologize, and then there's a forgiveness component, then I leave it up to the individual to decide whether or not they're ready to forgive. Because forgiveness for some people is not something you just hand out like flowers. Don't say, here you go, I forgive you. Forgiveness is about understanding that I know that there's something within you that caused you to make this error in judgment. However, I can forgive you, but I'm not going to condone this behavior nor forget what happened. I will learn, and I will not allow this to happen again. You need to change your behavior and so that doesn't happen again, because that's the point. It's a point about personal growth as well. Everyone needs to take responsibility for their actions. They also need to know how it affects other people.
Okay. And how many sessions does one usually need? I guess it depends on how deep the emotion is, right?
Well, based on a consortium through other emotion code practitioners, and I think Dr. Brad as well confirmed this as well. He said that approximately, not just emotional imbalances, but many other energetic imbalances, by the time one hits around their midlife, 40 to 45, they usually have about 250 imbalances. Now, it might seem like a mountain to climb, but remember, like Buddha did it in 3 years, and he did it on his own, no help, right? And he was one of those special ones, right? And he knew this. He knew that he was special, but he knew what he had to do in order to help other people identify how special they are too. So with us now, we've gotten to a point now that we can actually clinically get in there, find the body can respond to yes and no, isolate imbalances. We can jettison these things. Like we can do like every 2 weeks, we could do 8 to 12. So if you can do it in 26 sessions and release 10 emotions per, in 1 year, you can release all your trauma, all of it. You can accelerate your enlightenment. But sometimes it still takes a professional to help guide you through it, because there'll be some things that might be very difficult to face. And so you need someone to be there to hold space for you and not judge you and make sure and feel like you are safe as you go through the process. Because when you do that, it really helps the individual free themselves of it, but also allows them to be comfortable with being open about it again. And the more they can be open about it and be courageous in their vulnerability, which is kind of a dichotomy there, courageous in your vulnerability, and being open and honest, then what ends up happening is people have appreciate that individual more so, what it took to reveal that, have a greater understanding of that individual, and most importantly, actually now have this grace coming through that they now revere the person for what they went through. And they say that what you went through was incredible. I don't know how I could have dealt with that. Like, you are still here today. Like, that is an accomplishment. But now you're telling me about this. And as people keep telling the story, it becomes easier. And instead of feeling like a victim, now they're feeling like they're empowered because of their transgression, because of those traumatic experiences in their life, because it helped them learn what doesn't work, to share that what doesn't work message with others. So then we as a whole become consciously aware of what needs to be changed so that we can move forward to another level of, I'd say, evolution.
Now, my question is for you is, there's quite a number of, the last couple of, maybe 5-10 years, mental health is, it has written so much, right? And now we're facing the pandemic. Now we're going to phase two, and there's quite a number of mental health issues that
Mm-hmm.
it's really rising up, especially mental domestic violence and suicide. So have you ever treated someone or came to you about struggling with mental health and they're on medication? Give us a little bit more of a feedback in how that the sessions, and if they were coming off drugs, medication, because it's on a rise, like triple than before, right? Especially this period of time. So I'm just wondering if a lot of these individuals that are struggling with mental health can really benefit from the emotional code, right?
Certainly. I'm working on someone right now who has issues regarding panic attacks and anxiety.
Right.
And he decided to try this out because it's very new. It's kind of like emotional freedom technique, except you don't have to be tapping on your face. A lot of people don't find that method to be, appealing. So what emotion code is doing essentially is helping the individual and a practitioner isolate what is contributing that they've forgotten to process. So when we were able to remind them what they've forgotten to process and say that we can release this now, what ends up happening is that energy now is being released after about 7 days. And then after that 7-day period is gone, they start to feel like it doesn't come up or resurface as much, the panic or the anxiety. They're less prone to it. It does not mean that there aren't any thought programs that need to be isolated. Like, if I don't do this, something bad will happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we want to isolate the thought programs afterwards, because once the emotions are now released, the thought programs no longer have any fuel emotionally to draw upon. So what you'd say might be for us, for me, my point of view is we have like kind of two egos, one that needs to survive and one that needs to create. So what we're doing is we're sort of reining in the one that needs to survive, because the one that needs to survive is always looking for the safest route. The challenge is sometimes some risks that might be a little greater might have some immense reward on the other side. But someone with anxiety or panic or might be hesitant just by normal inclination to jump into that potential situation that would be in their highest good, because there's a lot of uncertainty. But if their soul knows at this present moment that is a good opportunity, I think you should engage. But the logical mind says, well, we need to plan, and we need to take all these different routes and find out if this is the best. By the time the person has totally figured it out, the opportunity may be gone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to allow the individual to go from a state of anxiety to a state of inner stillness and peace, where that guidance is. It's hard for them to get there because there's so much energy that's in the way to get it. So as we release those emotions, they're less prone to feeling that. It doesn't resurface as much, whether it be in dreams, whether it be in meditation, whether it be, like, let's say, in large groups if you're claustrophobic. With emotion code, there are stories where, for me, I had one who was a nurse, and she had issues regarding anxiety, and it wasn't just her current life anxiety. There was a lot of ancestral component part of it as well. And so when we released the ancestral and the current life stuff, she was able to go back to work without feeling like she was trying to control an energy that needed to come out. And that's the biggest challenge regarding anxiety. Anxiety is just trying to tell you that you need to prepare for something. It's not your enemy. It's saying it's your procrastination alert system. It says, you need to study for this exam in 5 days that's coming in 5 days. You can't cram before the day of. That ain't gonna work. That's what anxiety is there for you. It's here to tell you, prepare. But when we get to a point where we constantly go through these situations and we don't release the energy, what ends up happening is we become a ball of anxiety. And so one example was a nurse. Another example is a physician that I work with in Brazil. And he's still got some issues regarding his foot, but we're working on his sciatic nerve right now and all that. But he's really much more in control of his anxiety and his panic issues from previous parts of his life that has been released. So he's seen dramatic improvements in his state. And it's not just what I do. There's clinical studies. For example, I know Petta Stapleton did some in Australia, I believe, and they did it with EFT. And they found out that with the emotional freedom technique, they were able to release a whole bunch of pent-up emotions and thought processes that contributed to some food addictions and many other things. And it dropped their cortisol levels ridiculously. It dropped their anxiety. It dropped their depression states. It dropped their tendencies to be going towards certain foods. So whenever they were presented with the image of those foods that they really loved, they no longer had this desire or urge to go for them because they were part of their coping mechanism, right? So when they released the emotions from those coping mechanisms, now they didn't need a coping mechanism. They could just be and be fine and not feel enslaved by those tendencies.
I see.
So, Nelson, are you able to practice this on yourself, or do you?
Yes, I check in with myself all the time. The biggest challenge with my energy field is that there is a unique energy that calls upon me to remind me, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do next?
Right.
Let's go, let's go, let's go. So it's part of me because I'm constantly inspired. So I've got this creative energy that needs to be channeled every day. In human design, it's called being a manifesting generator. So for me, I just love to just be engaged, constantly learning all the time, seeing the patterns within the patterns of consciousness. I love just exploring and taking in. But there's a time where I have to balance, where I have to spend time in complete and utter silence. And it's very challenging for a Gemini to stay in complete and utter mental silence. But when I do, really amazing things come through. And it really helps me a lot. It keeps me inspired, motivated, grateful for it, because there are cues that come up in that meditation that when I don't have all those emotions that are repressed, I don't have all those mental imbalances, whether it be a post-hypnotic suggestion or a broadcast message that I keep repeating out, then I could just be still because there's nothing that it is being asked to be addressed until it's, whether my kids are being homeschooled and there's difficulty keeping them focused, I can get frustrated with their lack of commitment and focus. But they're kids, so I have to understand that. And so do I get challenged with frustration? Yes, absolutely. But what matters is that I know that at the end of my day, I can say, that was a very frustrating day. And now I can just go ahead. How much is it going to take for me to release this? And now I release it, but then I reflect and I go, what didn't work?
Right.
Why was I met with resistance? And what do I need to change in order to get them to focus? And then I'll meditate. And then boom, I get hit with an inspiration and idea from higher levels of consciousness through that etheric thread down into the crown chakra. And boom, I get hit with my inspiration. And then I found, okay, how am I going to channel this in a constructive way and create a plan or maybe a few options, and then let my guidance pick which option I should use. It really helps so much to release all that stuff, to get that clarity, to feel like you're completely in control, but in a way where it's complementary to something that you have to have faith in, right? Yourself and higher guidance.
Now, my question is, during this time of isolation and during the pandemic, during the last 3.5 months, give us your insight, but also share with us what you learned during that period of time about yourself and with others, and from a global point of view, what you saw, what you learned, and what you observed, and where do you see us going for the next, couple of months?
What I see is that there's still a lot of us out there that are saying the constant phrase, "Oh, I'm fine.
Yeah,
I'm fine," and I'm doing okay. And that mask, I'm not sure if it's apathy based on not wanting to be a burden to others, and I think that's a common theme regarding people. They don't want to burden other people with their problems. So what do? They keep it in. But when they keep it in, give it enough time, and eventually that energy is going to come out and it's going to hurt somebody, someone you love, by something you say. Maybe something you do physically. So what we all have to do is we all have to come to terms with, you know what? When I reflect, I see all the things that I've done wrong, all my mistakes. That means they were missed opportunities. But at the same time, I still have all my life to learn from this, and I still have the next opportunity to change and shift. But if I'm going to do that, it's easier if I get rid of all this stuff that's in my way that holds me down from being my best self. And the biggest challenge right now for me is men. I think it's because they're heavily conditioned not to express their emotions, because either it's some sort of programmed sign of weakness, or it's an energy that they can't control. They don't want to seem like they're not in control of their emotions to others, or soft, or weak, or a snowflake, or whatever term you want to use. But with the advent of women taking on their divine masculine, getting active, getting proactive, working out, getting fit, getting strong, getting confident, and taking a higher role in society, we as men can do what they're doing, but to the feminine component. We can be more receptive. We can be more sensitive. We can be more empathetic. We can be more understanding. We can have more reverence for everyone's troubles. And we can actually just be there in that uncomfortable space for that period of time, just to allow people to unload and just not say anything. You don't even have to say a damn thing. You could just say, thank you for sharing. I took a lot of guts to get that out. And I really appreciate what you were able to courageously reveal to me. And I will take what you've given me, and I won't share it with anybody else, because that was your personal thing. And it was a very sacred act for me to be there to help you. But is it possible that I can now share some stuff that, my father did to me or said to me, or how my mother treated me when I was young, or even this cultural, tribal weight of, this culture doesn't do this, or we don't do this, or we don't share this, or believe in that. And sometimes what ends up happening is that certain people in certain cultures are there to really shake things up in the culture, right? And so if we deny them the ability to be who they are, how can that tribal culture experience any form of growth? But when we stifle them, blanket them, prohibit them from their personal expression, even if we're, at first uncomfortable with it, like we were first uncomfortable with homosexuality, but given enough time, given enough understanding, we realized it was just love being expressed. A person did not have an inclination toward the opposite sex. And that isn't a crime, nor is that a problem, nor is that a mental condition that needs to be resolved. It just was new, and it was different, and we weren't ready for it. And we just needed time to learn more about it, right, and why that needed to be honored. And now we're going through the same thing with the situations regarding Black Lives Matter and racial injustices. A lot of this has been kept under the rug, hidden in a closet somewhere, and now it's finally out. The cameras are out. Everything's being revealed. And all of this needs to be addressed. It's simply, like, to me, COVID isn't some might say, healers would probably say it's a blessing, because now we have people staying at home, having to deal with being alone with their thoughts. And they're not well educated or equipped to do it. Yet people like myself, who are doing kind of like fringe therapies where they're holistic and non-invasive, we're not part of the healthcare system, because our means of healthcare practice isn't being recognized because there aren't enough studies or trials. If we were part of OHIP and we were able to help these people and declare their service and declare services to them through OHIP, we could reduce the mental health challenges significantly over a very short period of time. And if we could do that, we can boost immune function for every single person as a complement to that response. And then all they would have to do is choose to eat better, live better. And then we wouldn't have as many people vulnerable to the virus.
Right.
We'd have more resiliency. There'll be less strain on the healthcare system. But this is the biggest challenge for us right now, is that so long as we keep what's trapped inside and holding us back, we will continue to see declines in health at various levels. And on top of that, we'll see more strain on our healthcare system. And there'll be more, lands of opportunity for COVID.
Absolutely, yeah. I think so.
Thank you.
Now, Catherine, you got any your thoughts? And if anybody has any questions too, we can surely.
Maybe we can just open the floor to the audience and see if anyone has any questions for Nelson.
Oh, you have such great listeners,
Well, maybe I answered all their questions because I was so good at
I think you
articulating
did. I think so.
That was that's a great answer. If anyone want to ask questions, this is your time. If not, I've got one questions, and Catherine has a question. So that would.
I just want to know where we can find you if anyone is interested in having a session with you or knowing more. Where can they reach you?
Well, I have lots of social media feeds, so all sorts of types. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. Everything's Celestial Warmth. I have a website. I have a YouTube channel, Facebook page. You can reach me out through email through my first initial, Delgado @celestialwarmth.com. And what else? There are tutorials on my Instagram feed. When you go into IGTV, there'll be one close to the bottom. It gives people an understanding of how they can learn how to do this themselves if they can't afford the services. Now, that being said, I'm a person that usually wants to give people a really strong impression of what Emotion Code can do for them. So generally the first session is free with me.
Oh.
And if they're encouraged by that, then please just reach out. Let's have a free session for an hour. Let's see what we can release. And if you feel the shift and the differences, then you can keep going and release more. And encourage all your friends and family, because especially your spouse, because if your spouse is all logical like me and my wife are, because for me, I didn't want to engage in Emotion Code until I saw that it worked. I went to the seminar in Nevada. I saw people with the shakes after one session releasing maybe 3 or 4 trapped emotions. The very next day, they could hold a cup of coffee with no lid on it. So there's some impressive stuff that Emotion Code can help people with. But sometimes it takes seeing to believing. And that's why I encourage people to take a free session, feel the effects. If you feel the shifts, wonderful. A week later, I check in, see how you're doing, see if you're as susceptible to the same patterns. If you feel like you're more in control, it's working. And after that, then there's multi-session relief pricing for those that are motivated to say, well, that was amazing and I really want to do more. But also always encourage your spouse. So if you have a husband or a girlfriend or a boyfriend who really thought, well, wow, yeah, that's quite, what did you done? You're different today. And that's what I get a lot from people, is that their family tells them, you feel, your field is different. You feel different. What have you done? That is a big question. What did you do? Why are you vibing this way? And so when they tell their friends and when they tell their spouse, and their spouse is like, I don't know, just tell them, first session's free. Just do it. What do you got to lose? Except an hour of your time.
Well, we'll do is we're gonna post that up. If you can post that up later on, share it. At least we'll share it on Inspiring Minds community group, or also on my Facebook. So, if it's so they can get a hold of you, right? But final question for me, if nobody's answering, is where do you see, Emotion Code or yourself what you want to accomplish the next 6 months to, later on for a year or so, right? What is it?
What? What I would love to see is I would love to see emotion code practiced in every household across North America by parents, and then emotional intelligence taught to children very early on, so that they know what they're feeling and they know what the feeling is trying to communicate, so that they have time and they take their time to express consciously what they need to say, speak their truth, but without having it to be something that is like an attack. Because the point is that when we, again, I have another chart here, like I have this chart here, which talks about all the emotions, what they're there for, the questions that you need to ask, and the process therein, and learning how to decipher how to work with them. Because if parents knew what emotions were really, what they really were, and how to release them when they got to a point where there was too much, and that they can hold space for their children, and their children felt safe, that they weren't going to be judged or ridiculed for feeling that way, you would see a dramatic shift in the way we all communicate with each other in a very short period of time. I can't stress it enough. That's why I put the video on Instagram. And I have some YouTube videos as well for people to learn how to do it. They may be a little lengthy, but they're important to take notes so that they can do this themselves a little bit. But when it gets to the body code, where the body then says, do I have any more emotions to release? And it says no. Then at that point, is there anything else to release? And it says yes. Then you reach out to me for those body code sessions. Then we get into some other stuff that's more complex. Stuff like those post-hypnotic suggestions, broadcast messages, negative images, despair anchors. What else is there? Even sometimes we say things repeatedly to our children. Sometimes we don't even know it. And it can be acting like a curse. We don't know it, but we've cast a spell by verbally repeating something often enough that it becomes part of their psyche and they don't know it. So when we address, oh, wow, there's even that, then there's so much more work that can be done that could literally free people and allow them to really become empowered and become really benevolent, divine beings, essentially channeling grace through flesh to everyone around them. Like, the point is to have heaven on earth, but to have heaven on earth, we have to purge what keeps us in a state of a sense of what you might call hell.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I'm in the next 6 months. I would love to be busier, and I hope that this video reaches hopefully a lot of people that will reach out to me for the free session, so they can keep me busy.
Well, first of all, thank you, Nelson, for supporting some of our events and movement of Inspiring Minds, and everyone that tuned in here, that register, and we truly appreciate, sharing the emotion code. And I without a doubt, and I know you are helping a lot of individuals out there who are really struggling, and thank you, and we appreciate you for that. And this is not the last. I would love to have you back on again and share more about your thoughts and experience and helping others, right? And if anybody else has a question, this is the time now. But if not, we'll be more than happy to have post this up on YouTube, and we'll reach out. And I just want to thank you for that. I really appreciate your time and sharing with us, and your mission and vision.
It's an honor and privilege to be part of the show, and I really appreciate you, John, and the group. And I look forward to being on the show again. And I kind of interrupted your partner in terms of what you wanted to share. So
I just wanted to thank you so much for teaching me about what you do. And I might just take you up on that free session. So let's keep in contact.
I look forward to it.
So
thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Nelson. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Mylene, and thank you, Julie, and thank you, Catherine, again. And I
Thank you so much.
you guys again, and thank you. I really appreciate it. And you, everyone, have a wonderful evening and amazing, Nelson. Thank you again for doing what you do. Okay.
Honor and privilege.
Thank you.
Anytime, John. Till next time.
Bye.
Take care.